Well, it's great to be here at Sydney Airport this morning with our Tourism, Jobs, Investment Minister, Stuart Ayres, on a great day for our city, our state and our country. It's been 700 long days since the international border has been open, and it's great to see today's announcement and having people come back into our great city, Australia's truly only global city. We are Australia's gateway to the world, and to be here today with the buzz and the excitement as we get back to normal, as New South Wales and Australia rejoins the world. We know the visitor economy here in New South Wales worth $38 billion. That's 300,000 jobs, 100,000 businesses rely on the visitor economy to put food on the table and provide for their families. Today is an incredible day for our state. It's been a long journey, a long 2-year journey through COVID, but having our borders open, not just here but around our country, will make a real difference to people's lives. We're seeing families be reunited, we'll have tourists return, international students return, and that's a great thing for our city. It's phenomenal for our state and for our nation. And here in New South Wales, we've led the way. We need to open up. We cannot go backwards. And the high vaccination rate, our booster shot campaign here in our state ensures that we can rejoin the world in a safe way. We can't go backwards. We've seen this global pandemic cause many challenges around the world, and I think today we should also reflect on the fact that Australia's response in the main has been incredibly successful. We've seen many people die around the world. We've seen hospitals under pressure, many ICU presentations. But if you look in New South Wales, if you look across our country, we have a lot to be proud of as a people. We have an incredibly low death rate. Our economy remains incredibly strong. We look at the unemployment numbers that came out, not just in New South Wales at 4.2%, but right around the country. We've kept people in work. We've kept businesses open. And today we rejoin the world, and what a positive thing that is for many people across our state, across our country. And I'm very proud to be part of a government that has led the way in this nation to open up and to get things back to normal. Today is a sign that we're getting back to the life that we love. And we can do that because of the efforts and the sacrifices that people have made around our state and around our country for 2 long years. So I want to thank everybody. We wouldn't be here today without the amazing efforts and sacrifices that people have made over the last 2 years. So today is a day for us all to celebrate as we rejoin the world, as people come back into our great country. You know, thousands will be coming through today from overseas, 27 international flights into Sydney Airport today, and we know that that is the beginning of many, many more. As we continue to move forward, we aren't going backwards, and that is because of the efforts and the sacrifices that people have made across our great state for 2 long years. So today is a great day to celebrate our state, our country, as we rejoin the world. And I'm going to pass to Stuart Ayres to make some further comments.
Thank you, Premier. Well, tourism is back in Sydney. We've been carrying the nation through the course of the last 2 years, and now people are welcome through our front door without having to quarantine. This is about making sure Sydney, New South Wales and indeed Australia re-engages with the world. There's no doubt that the world is moving on from COVID. Right around the world, we're seeing countries change restrictions, open up borders and allow people to move freely around the globe, and it is absolutely critical that we do the same thing here, or we will simply be left behind. This is a $38 billion industry. Over 300,000 people rely on it for a job, and it generates thousands and thousands of additional jobs right across the state. Today is such an important moment for the tourism sector. There is probably no industry that has done it tougher over the last 2 years than the tourism sector. We've seen some really strong resurgence in the domestic market, but we absolutely need those international visitors coming through this main port here in Sydney to make our business community work, our international students work, and as well as those visiting family and relatives that are so critical to what happens here in New South Wales. We're also making sure we're staying on the front foot. Over the last 2 years, we've lost lots of airlines that have been flying to Sydney regularly who have ceased to fly because of the pandemic. That's why the New South Wales Government is investing $60 million, which is being matched by Sydney Airport in our Aviation Attraction Fund. This is about getting those airlines that are regular flyers to Sydney coming back to this market, but also opening up new opportunities for international airlines to come into Sydney. Whilst today is an important day, it is still a long road ahead for our tourism sector, but this is exactly what they need, the support from government and open borders. I also want to say a message to Australians who are thinking about travelling. If you're thinking about travelling over the next 12 months or so, please call a travel agent. They've had an absolutely shocking period of time over the last 2 years, so if you're thinking about booking a holiday with friends or family, call your local travel agent. Please go through those guys. They could absolutely do with your business. And if you're booking a local holiday, always thinking about booking direct. It's exactly the same as buying local.
Someone stack that in. Great point Stuart's just made. A lot of people have done it tough for 2 years. But there are obviously some sectors of the New South Wales economy that have had it harder, and travel agents particularly during this period of time. And I've met many, particularly at the start, the outset of the pandemic, we lost many businesses who rely on travel and international travel to survive, and many have had to close. And whether it's hospitality, tourism sector, particularly around Sydney, going on runs around Sydney, some of those, even the small convenience stores that rely on the tourism, rely on those buses to come back. Today is a great day of joy for them. They've gone through an incredibly difficult 2 years. So to Stuart's point, it's a very good point. You are going overseas, if you are travelling around, please do it through a travel agent. Help those businesses who have been doing it incredibly tough over 2 years and are still standing strong. Let's help them out. Question?
The PM today said that Sydney's grand reopening has been sabotaged by the rail fiasco that's occurred today. Do you agree? Has today been spoiled?
Look, today, nothing should get in the way of today. It's a great day of celebration. I am incredibly disappointed. I feel the anger of everybody across our city. Make no mistake, this is a coordinated attack by the Labor Party and the union movement. They even flagged it on the front page of the newspaper today. This is no accident. This is a concerted campaign by the unions and the Labor Party to cause mass disruption across our city. They're not even hiding it. They're not even hiding it. Today, the first day we have international arrivals coming in, a day where mums and dads are trying to get their kids to school, a day when many university students are going back to class for the first time, many people, as a result of our announcement last week, returning to work. The unions were intent on causing chaos. I'm incredibly disappointed with what has occurred across our city this morning, and there is no doubt. I mean, this is going back to the Wildcat strikes. That's what this is, and this is the unions playing games with the Labor Party for political purposes at the expense of our people. So, was that?
They didn't go.
No. What occurred? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. The decision was made.
You shut them
No,
down.
the decision was made by Sydney Trains because of the lack of agreement, based on the fact that the unions and the negotiations that have been occurring in good faith on Saturday, when a decision was reached, the unions took a different approach to the decision that was reached in the Industrial Relations Commission. It was called back on Sunday and they didn't even turn up. This is a coordinated, concerted attack on our system here in Sydney, and we will continue to negotiate in good faith, but you give people time. The advice I received from Sydney Trains early this morning was they had no alternative in terms of safety. They could not, based on the interpretation of the unions, a wrong interpretation in relation to the decision that was made by the Industrial Relations Commission, cause this. This is a concerted, predetermined campaign by the union movement. They flagged it. They're not even hiding. They are not even hiding their punches. They've flagged this they've said today in a campaign, do you think there is any coincidence between the newspapers today with a concerted campaign from Unions New South Wales to say we're having rolling strikes across the course of the year, and today we have this action by the union movement? You cannot treat the people of our great state in this way. And it is very, very clear this is the Labor Party in bed with the union movement to cause mass disruption. And Mark Morey from Unions New South Wales and the Labor-backed unions have been working on these strikes for many, many months. We saw that last year, towards the end of last year. These are Labor-backed unions in bed with each other, treating the people of New South Wales like political pawns in their games.
But you didn't have to shut the rally.
The advice, no, that's untrue. The advice I received from Sydney Trains, based on the decision that was made, that of the union's view in relation to that timetable, was that at that late hour, it was impossible in respect of safety for Sydney.
When you say safety, what do you mean, overcrowding? Or what are the nuts and bolts?
Well, the advice I received from the CEO of Sydney Trains this morning was based on the decision that was made last night that they could not turn around and change the timetable system in a way that would be safe for commuters. That's the advice from the CEO.
Is that
A range of factors, but ultimately you don't just turn a train system on in a few hours. And the timetabling had been set. The decision of the Industrial Relations Commission had been made. When the unions took a different view, it was called back on Sunday night and the unions didn't even show up. So that is very clear. And the number one focus for our government, and I will always take the advice of those who run the train network, is safety is paramount. Now they can't, if they can't.
So if I was getting a train this morning and the train network was working, why would I be unsafe?
What they're saying is that they could not change the timetable in such a way to have it operating in a safe way. That is the advice that we've received from Sydney Trains.
Sorry to hammer this point, but I'm just trying to figure out why people are there waiting for a train. Why was it unsafe?
There are, from the discussions I had with the CEO of Sydney Trains this morning, there are a number of technical issues in relation to the time it takes from setting a timetable, having that operate in a way that's coordinated, that ensures that all the trains are operating in a safe way. That takes time. It is a enormous network right across our city. Everything was on track. Every issue had been dealt with until last night. And I will take the advice from Sydney Trains in relation to how to operate the train network in a safe way. If they operated it or went back to a previous timetable at late notice and the system fell down and there were safety issues, well, that's not a risk the government's willing to take. But make no mistake, this is a concerted campaign from the unions and the Labor Party to cause chaos in our city. They are not even hiding it. There are people right across our city today who are rightly angry in relation to what has occurred. If there are industrial issues, which they have flagged, right across the public service, then we deal with it in a thought-through, measured way that puts people at the heart of it. Ultimately, all those negotiations are all about ensuring the safety of people across our state, whether that's in health, education, transport, police, all those government services. But what we saw this morning, based on the actions of the unions, was absolutely disgraceful. It should be condemned. And I'm incredibly disappointed and share the anger of every single person across our city this morning.
How can you blame the unions when they say they want to use all
First
these
off.
year of strike?
First off.
Got industrial issues with multiple unions now. Do you believe that there is an orchestrated campaign across the unions?
It's very clear. It could not be clearer. This is, at a situation, and we're happy to work through and always have been, working through those industrial matters in a mature and professional way. When you look at pay, in relation to the New South Wales public sector. The public sector pay at 2.5% has exceeded pay in all other states and territories. In all other states and territories. So why this concerted attack? Why this concerted attack in New South Wales? Because this is all about politics. This is Labor, once again, in bed with the unions. They flagged this last year. Mark Morey flagged it last year. He's flagged it again today. They are not at all being reasonable. This is about politics and unions and the Labor Party against the people of our state, and we aren't going to stand for it.
Premier, your Transport Minister's not here right now. He's called the unions and said that they're acting like spoiled children. Is that the mature and professional approach that you're talking about trying to have? I mean, should your Transport Minister be more focused on mending this relationship with the unions?
Well, he's clearly pretty frustrated, as we all are. We've been working through these issues for a period of time, just like we always do, and their approach is incredibly poor. So I can completely appreciate how frustrated the Transport Minister is.
Do you appreciate his labelling of the active as terrorism?
Well, he will use whatever colour he sees fit. As Premier of this state, I'm disappointed and incredibly frustrated and angry, like everybody else across our city today, based on the actions of the union. And make no mistake, Labor are up to this to their eyeballs. This is a coordinated attack. We know they've met last year. This is all about politics. Why would you think that they're coming out and saying today, I mean, this didn't happen in a month's time. It's happened on the same day that they are in the papers calling for a year of strike and inconvenience. The ultimate decision of the government is to make the ultimate decision of the government is to make decisions that keep people safe. That's the advice of the CEO of Sydney Trains. This hasn't happened in a vacuum. It's happened based on the actions of the unions over the course of the weekend. Why, after being in the Industrial Relations Commission on Friday, reaching agreement on Saturday, then coming back and saying, oh no, actually that wasn't the agreement that was reached. The Sydney Trains needed to seek clarification in the Industrial Relations Commission last night, and the unions not even rocking up. This is a... Their key witnesses were not. Their key witnesses were not.
But you can't say they weren't rocking up.
Well, you can't get... Anybody who understands the Industrial Relations Commission and the legal process would understand when decisions are made, you need witnesses available. They purposely ensured that this strike action today that we've seen that's caused chaos across our city is due to politics and the union movement. And we are not going to go back to the days of wildcat strikes coordinated by the Labor Party and the union movement in this state. If they have issues, we'll continue to work through them in a reasoned, measurable way.
You froze their pay for 2020, you froze their pay as well. So
and we went, and as I said...
Is it a surprise that they're acting?
So, we paused pay rises in this state at a time when 300,000 people across our state lost their jobs in a pandemic. I think it's very important that you look at every other state and see Labor states, Western Australia have had pay pauses for years on their public sector. We have had 2.5% above inflation every year. But we paused it for 1 year when 300,000 people across our state lost their job. And I was Treasurer at the time, and I said as soon as we could bring that back, we would, and we did within a year. So I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that in circumstances where our state has gone through a bloody hard time for 2 years. When 300,000 people lose their job, the decision we made at that point in time was the right one, and my commitment on that day was that we would bring back 2.5% as quickly as we could, and we did, and we were able to because the economy picked up. When I look around the country and I see Labor states freezing pay for significant periods of time in years. What happened today is incredibly disappointing. And it is disappointing because I know what it's about. It's about politics and the unions launching a campaign against the people of our state over the next 12 months. And Labor should call it out.
Will your government consider increasing the pay rise cap?
Sorry, Lucy.
Wages policy is going to be a sticking point. Is your government willing to sit down and to sacrifice some of the budget to talk about pay rises for the essential workers who would argue they got us through the pandemic? Teachers, nurses, rail workers, they've been the ones still fronting off going to work while the rest of us have been able to work from home.
Well, we're always. I'm meeting with a union later this morning. We've always worked with the unions over the course of this period of time. We've done it the entire time we've been in office.
But we're having rolling strike action, so it doesn't
Yeah,
seem to be
yeah, but that's because it's politically motivated. It's politically motivated. This is Labor and the unions in bed with each other, causing mass chaos across our city. That's what this is about. And at 2.5% above inflation, we've gone through a period of time where many people across our state have either lost their job or haven't had a pay rise for many, many years. Our job is to get a balanced approach. We want our public servants to be the best paid in the country. We've had 2.5% every year since coming into office, every single year. And there are decisions the government needs to make in balancing those up and providing high quality services and at the same time ensuring we have a highly paid public service. And that's what we've had by having 2.5% pay increases, 2.5% above inflation at a time when many people across our state are struggling to make ends meet, at a time when many have lost their jobs and many haven't seen pay increases for some time. I know that when we made that decision to pause pay in the middle of the pandemic, that it was an unpopular one. Our job is to always make decisions that we believe are right. We'll always work with the unions, but today's action is not the appropriate way to be dealing with the situation. And for context, I'd like you to do this for context, which really illustrates the politics that is at play here. Go and have a look at the pay increases in every other state around the country. Go and have a look at that. But no protests, no rail strikes there, no shutting down the city there. Why? Because this is all about politics. Because they wouldn't do it to the Labor governments. This is unions and Labor in bed with each other to cause mass destruction across our city and our state. I'm going to call it out. Today was incredibly disappointing. I know many people are angry about the inconvenience that's been caused, particularly on a day where we're getting back to normal, where we're getting back to the life that we love in our city and state. We've got kids going back to school. I mean, what about the unions? What about the doctors' union? The unions never get called out. The doctors' union, Karen Phelps, coming out and saying kids shouldn't go back to school, that it would be unsafe, scaring teachers, scaring parents. Well, what's happened with schools? Kids are back, learning again, face-to-face learning. But the unions ran that scare campaign, and now we have confidence back in our parents, kids back face-to-face learning again. That's what we're getting on. We are getting on with the job. And I say to the unions, stop instilling fear, stop causing disruption, and sit down at the table in a responsible way as we work through these issues.
You've got the Secretary of Transport for New South Wales, former CEO of Virgin, executive of Virgin. Seems to me like you might be taking a leaf out of the Alan Joyce playbook when you've got a tricky industrial dispute, you just shut the network and call the union blunt. Is that what's happening here?
No, that is exactly what is not. That's not happening at all. The job
Rob
of
Sharp's come under a fair bit of criticism.
That's not his decision. The decision was made by the CEO of Sydney Trains, and I will take that advice in relation to keeping people
Will you
safe.
meet Alex Glassons yourself first?
Well, I'm meeting with a union this morning. Obviously, I have an industrial relations minister. My door's always open, but ultimately there are ministers, industrial relations minister and Damien Tudhope. My expectation is our ministers work with the unions to resolve these issues.
What do you think the expectation of people Sydney? Do you sit down with the secretary of the RTV?
Well, I'm meeting with the union this morning, and I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes to ensure we don't have this action occurring again, but in a reasonable way. What occurred this morning in our city was not reasonable, and the unions need to be called out for it. I will always sit down with whoever I need to as Premier of the State to get matters fixed. But I am not going to accept as Premier that what occurred this morning was not politically motivated by Labor and the unions. This is a concerted campaign. They are telling you it's a concerted campaign. They're rolling it out. They raised it last year. They're in the papers today, spread everywhere, saying, get ready for the rolling strike. Hey, and welcome to day one. We're shutting down the train network. That is completely unacceptable behaviour. It's not going to happen in our state, and the people of New South Wales deserve better.
Premier, just on the international border, there's one big issue. China is not here, and they can't leave at the moment. They're massive for our market.
Yeah.
Do you fear that the federal government's rhetoric surrounding China at the moment is going to stop that massive, very important tourism market from coming back here?
No, I don't. And the biggest challenge we've got with China at the moment is their COVID policies, because obviously they're pursuing an elimination of the virus. So my expectation is that once China is back on its feet in relation to its COVID response, they'll be coming flooding back in, because we know that China is a very important part of the tourism market here, and my expectation is they'll come flooding back as soon as they can.
Back to strikes. What will your government do to make sure this doesn't happen in the future?
Well, I will sit down with the unions, as I've done during my previous time as Treasurer of this state, and work through them. But they aren't, today is not reasonable. This is a concerted campaign. I will do whatever I can to ensure this doesn't happen. But I'll tell you this. The unions need to act in good faith, and this is a campaign from Labor and the unions to shut down our city, and it's not going to happen. They've done it in the past. We've seen it in the past. We've seen it again. And if the media can't work out what occurred this morning, I know the people of New South Wales will.
Premier, on a day like today, why isn't your Transport Minister here, instead doing press only in his elected office and only briefing certain media outlets? Is that appropriate? Is he up to the job of handling this?
Of course, he's been out in the media all morning. We're here to celebrate what is a great day today for our city, our state, and our nation.
Is it appropriate that he's only briefing certain media outlets about where he's going to be appearing?
Well, I'm not aware of that. Unless you want to raise that with me offline, I'm happy to talk to you about it. But I know the minister has been out. Minister Ayres and I are here today on what is a day of great celebration for our city, our state, and our country. Today is a great day for small businesses right across our state, for the tourism industry, for hospitality. Today will be a point in time when we look back in years to come about the day Australia moved forward through this pandemic. That's what today represents. That's why it's great to be here this morning. And you know what? Maybe the Prime Minister was right. Today should have been a happier day for our state, because the impact of international tourism coming back into our state, into our nation, will have a phenomenal impact for people right across the board. And today should have been a happy day. It still is. It's not overridden by the inconvenience of the union's behaviour. And that's not going to stand in our way. I'm happy to speak to the Minister about it, but the Minister's been out. Today, this announcement is about the opening of our borders here in Australia's truly only global city, the best city in the best state, in the best country in the world. And to Ursula's question, they will come back, because where else would you rather be than in Sydney and New South Wales? So we're here today to celebrate with people across our state, and we're not going to let the unions get in the way of that.
Thanks.